Hello everyone. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is installing an iDrive into a MCI bus. So we're going to walk through the steps from start to finish on how to install this equipment in your vehicle. As you can tell that the vehicle is already powered on, and open the door, so we're going to go inside. We're going to take a quick look at all the equipment and tools involved in the process, at least the process that I use and how I execute. So right here, I have my torque wrench set. I would say a good, not too many pieces in here are used, probably no more than 5%, just a handful of them. However, to have the whole arsenal available does make it useful for whether you're trying to get into tight spaces, you need to add on an extender or any other pieces. And right here we have the iDrive AI camera. Inside here has all the components. You got your panic button, you got your AI camera device itself, some cords, and we'll go more in depth with that as we start the process. Got me a power tool here for putting in various bits for screwing and tightening things. I feel like using a power tool does make it a lot quicker, especially when you have a bunch of screws and bolts that need to go into play. And we have duct tape. We also have our set of bits, varying lengths and sizes, where they're the Phillips or they're the plus sign shaped one. These will be essential to the process. Right over here, we also have hex bit sets. We have some specialized screws that we need to utilize these for. So these definitely will come in handy. And I have my razor. I like this one because it allows me to have a nice firm grip along with the razor, and when I'm doing a cut and maneuver, it's easy to utilize. It's fairly cheap, inexpensive, and when you're storing it, you can put the razor away upside down. I don't know if you can see that well, but it also has the option to keep you from cutting yourself. When I'm ready to use it, I just unscrew this part right here, flip it over, and we're good to go. So another option other than the traditional box cutter you would use. These right here will also come in handy. These will be good for if you wanted to splice wires. Also good for splicing wires. It has a pulley mechanism right here at the top. Depending on what type of wires you're pulling, that can be helpful. This right here is a crimping tool. So after you put wires together or you want to add on an attachment, you can use this to crimp it down to lock it in place. So right here I have another plier tool, and I use this one particularly for flush cuts. You're also going to need a bag of these guys. And to confirm you got the right power from the right place coming from the bus, we got an ohm meter. So that will help us determine that we got the right voltage, we're in the right areas, and whether the bus is powered on, we can draw constant hot power or hit the ignition power switch. Also a wire hanger. Definitely comes in handy as they're pulling wires through our dashboard and trying to set up. So this is the full arsenal of everything that I'll be utilizing to do the iDrive AI camera install for this bus. So for starters, we already know the area that we're going to install this camera. It's going to go right up here up on the window. So when we do that, we need to make sure we feed the wires down into the dash. Now if you look here, we got this rubberized gasket right here to kind of like seal the gap between the dash and the window. So we're going to remove this guy, and we're going to see where we can feed the wires through. As you can see, there's a hole here where wires are already coming through. So we're going to go ahead and reuse that hole. So that way we don't have to drill any extra holes in the dashboard, and we can start feeding our wires into the system. So as we get started, we're going to take a moment to familiarize ourselves with the equipment that we will be installing. So right over here, we have our iDrive AI. We have the connection ports here. Here's where the cords go in. We got the front-facing camera. This side looks back into the cabin. Here's your display. We have our wires for our panic button. Wires that connect to the camera. Additional wires to make the full length of wiring for when we're connecting to power and drawing necessary juice to operate our device. Then we have our base plate along with attachments. Here's 2 screws to set those in position. And then we have our circuit breaker that we will splice into the wiring between our constant hot and the device. So one of the first things that we are trying to feed through there is this right here. Okay, so one of the most frustrating parts of putting this iDrive in was to feed it through that hole. Now, there's probably other easier options or places that I could have chosen to place it, but I decided that I wanted to minimize the amount of damage I caused to the vehicle and try to seamlessly integrate it into the bus. For this next step, we're going to take our hex screws and we're going to take off the dashboard. So the size that we're going to be using is going to be called a T8. In case of emergencies, I have my speed out, which is a set of strip screw bits. What they allow me to do is whenever I have a screw that won't come out because it's dug out and there's nothing for my driver to bite onto, I can use these guys to still get that screw out. Alright, so now that we got the screws removed, we're going to gently wiggle this out, pull the cords. You're not trying to pull it too far, just until you feel resistance. And then we're going to set this part up here. Now that we got the dash off, we have 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we have 4 bolts that we need to remove to take the radio out. This will allow us the space necessary so we can get into the dash and grab that cord, that wire. For this part of the process, we're going to use our extender, which is about, I would say, about 3 or 4 inches, and we're going to use 3/8. That should be enough to grab the bolt and get this radio out of there. Now we're just going to give it a quick shake. So the radio slips right out. You kind of hold the radio, shimmy the cords, help it come down and away a bit. And there you have it. Alright, so now that we got the radio out of the dash and kind of pulled off to the side, what we're going to do is we're going to look for this wire. So we check down in here, way over in the corner. We'll kind of feel around for that wire. So let's see here. So we just reach in here, down back here. You might be able to feel it. If you look closely and kind of pull the wire up and down, you might can see it moving. Alright, so I know I spotted it. From my angle I can see it around the corner. So what we're going to do is we're going to reach around here, kind of feel for the other end, and pull it through. It's a little tight space, but there we go. So I'm going to pull with my left arm, at the same time push with my right to help feed the wire down. So that way we don't strip it, we don't cause any damage. And we want to pull the wire roughly 2/3 of the way through. Alright, so right here, you can see that we pulled our wire out. You want to make sure you got the correct end. This is the extension end that you want to have pulled out. The other end of the wire, it has more of a 7 shape. So this is the part that goes into the AI camera. So now that we completed the hardest part, which was trying to feed the wire through here and retrieve it through the radio, we can go ahead and do some partial installation of the actual iDrive. So we're going to put these pieces together, apart from this. So we're going to get our base plate, our iDrive. I'm going to put it all together and up on the window, so it'll already be set in place. And we can begin putting together those wires, so it can aid us in the completion of the next part of this process. So now we have our iDrive installed. We got the wiring coming from down here. It comes up here in sort of a U shape. What we're going to do is secure the cable. And the wire connects right here in the back. You want to make sure this does not get moved in either direction. You do not want this to twist. It's going to be secure in this position, and then you screw it on here. So with the zip tie, it helps give it some play, and so that way it doesn't get pulled on too much and pulled out of position. Things should stay fine, because once we put the wires away, there shouldn't be any tampering. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to feed the wires. We're going to put them right here, kind of feed them into this panel here so they can get tucked away like that. And the rest of this down here, we're going to kind of push in and around this gasket right here. You see how it kind of gives? So to give it a more flush look, we're going to pull some wire up and kind of feed down into this section. So now that we got our wires tucked away, they're tucked behind here. We push the rest of it down between here, and it kind of comes out on this side. Once we put that cap back on, it'll look pretty flush, and we'll only see really the wire right here as it comes up. We're going to go ahead and tighten this down a bit, and we're going to flush cut it with our flush cut pliers. And after that, we're going to move on to the next phase of the installation. Alright, so now that we have our cord pulled through, what we're going to do next is we're going to take our other part of our cord, which goes down to power, and we're going to feed it through. Before we can do that, we're going to first come to this panel, take the panel off of this side, and we're going to feed our wiring through, connect it, and then we can put both panels back in place. Once we have all that said and done and our wiring wired all the way through down to our switchboard on the side of the bus, then we can start connecting to and looking for power. So now that we got this side all boarded up, we have our camera installed, put the radio back in place, and we've taken this portion out on the left side, the left panel. So now what we have is the end of this wire needs to be fed through here to get to our panel on the side of this bus. So there's going to be two things we're going to do. We're going to engage the side panel. So you're going to yank that. That should make the door pop out on the side. This is where our wire hanger comes into play. So if you look in here, there's various ports and holes and things for where wires and stuff is being fed. What we're going to try and do is feed our wire somewhere through here. So we're going to go around the outside and see if we can feed our wire hanger through here to get to our wiring to pull it to the power. Alright, so we're going to open this panel. Now we're here in the panel. And what we're going to do here is, if you look up through there, you can kind of see that there's like some light shining through from down here. So we're gonna feed our wire hanger, just a generic old wire hanger from your home or from the shop, wherever there might be uniforms. There's likely using regular old wire hangers, and we're gonna feed it straight up in here. The goal is to fish for an opening. Okay, we found one. Fish for an opening and push that wire hanger as far up as possible. What's going to end up happening is it's going to come up through that panel. Now that panel's open, it's found a gap where that wire can go through. And this can just sit right here. Now that we got our hanger pulled through, the next thing we want to worry about is our panic button as well as our cable. So we know the cable is coming out of this left panel here. So this and this needs to be wired and have access to power. Only way we can access power is by feeding it through this panel down to our circuit board outside. So in order to do that, we're going to open up our panic button, take all the wiring off, take all the little ties off. And if you look here, we have this panel box right here. And what we have is wiring heading down this post into the frame. So we're going to go ahead and follow that same direction to kind of feed our panic button into the dash, because it's going to live in a similar location. So this part is fairly easy. So you fed it right in there, and it has stickies on the back of it as well. So we're gonna put our panic button right here. It's not obstructed. If the driver has a cup or something, it wouldn't accidentally press it. And it's a big bright red button that's easily accessible even while driving. So we're gonna go ahead and stick that there nice and firm. Press it all the way around for a few seconds. And we're gonna make sure we pull that wire nice, taut, and as flush as possible. Now, we have 2 sets of wires. So with our iDrive and panic button, we're going to go ahead and grab some tape. Take a little tape, and we're going to tape them onto our wire hanger. Doesn't have to be a super perfect job, just enough for it to just hang on to there for a bit. Now we're going to kind of feed it back as best we can and make sure all of our wires are nice and loose, not obstructed. Then we're going to go around and grab the hanger to pull the rest of the wire through. After pulling the wires through, now we can start working inside the circuit panel, and we'll identify where our power is using these tools below. So the first step of the process is to unscrew this panel here. I've already taken the screws out, so we're going to go ahead and remove this piece. It hides all of our connection points for power that we'll be drawing. Keep in mind though, the screws for this cover is very, very small. That's my finger. This is the screw. You want to be careful not to lose these screws or these washers. So make sure you either manually unscrew them or move very slowly so that you can make sure you catch them and save them for when you're putting the cover back on. Now, for the iDrive, you need 2 sources of power. They can run on either 12 volt or 24 volt. And in that case, you need to make sure you get it 12 hot or 24 hot, and also you will need to get 12 ignition or 24 ignition. The iDrive cameras are suited to be able to run off of 12 volts just fine, but I've been told by some people that I can also run it off of 24, and that will give us a stronger power connection. So I typically go by a 24. So what we have here is our 24 hot. What does 24 hot mean versus our down here, our 24 ignition? That means the 24 hot constantly has power, even when the bus is powered off, except for when you hit the power switch to the battery, where you disconnect the battery from all units. That means that the entire bus will have no juice. However, when the power switch is on, 24 volt hot stays on even when the bus is turned completely off and you're done for the day. With 24 ignition, what you have here is when the bus is powered on for operation and for you to do your pre-trip and then drive, that's when this switch engages. And you're going to connect your iDrive so that it has switch power and hot power. That way, the iDrive is being instructed to power on and start recording when the bus is running. But also, the 24 hot will serve to power the iDrive for downloads after the bus stops running. So when you shut your bus off, that's when it will look for the signal and begin sending your video footage recorded out of that bus to your server. So on our left, what we have is our panic button wiring, and on our right, we have our iDrive wiring. First, we're going to talk through what wires go where. So for the left side, our panic button wiring, the black is ground. you will match the corresponding color with the black ground from the iDrive on the right. Those two wires will go to a grounding spot within the circuit board. The blue wire from the panic button on the left will be spliced and connected to the blue wire from the iDrive wiring on the right. Now, as you can see, I've separated the green and the yellow. Those are typically used for either identifying the door or alarm switch. Neither of those we will be installing during this installation process. So what I typically do is I just cut those away. Of all the vehicles and buses that I've installed iDrive, I've never had to install any wiring for the door or alarm. So we're going to skip that process. Now, focusing on our iDrive wiring, we already stated that the blue will go to the blue panic wire and both black grounds will go together to a grounding spot. The red wire will be connected to our constant hot, either 12 or 24 volt. And then our white wire is what we are going to connect to our ignition power. So in this case, if everything is 24 volt, we will connect the white wire to our 24 volt ignition. So I had plenty of fun putting the wires in. If you look closely, we've connected our power. We got 24 volt hot wired right here with this yellow tab. We also made sure to put on our circuit breaker here. So if there's a spike in voltage, this guy will stop it from blowing our camera. I bundled up the rest of our wires, but we did connect the blue to blue, as you can see here. And we ground it, as well as we got 24 volt ignition switch. So now that we did all the wiring within the panel, we're going to go ahead and check out the inside and see if we have power. So here's our camera. Turn on the power. And there you go. We have a functioning iDrive. So that's how you install an iDrive AI camera inside of an MCI bus. So if you like my content and you want to see some more, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below.